Of Herbert West, who was my friend in college and in the afterlife, I can speak only with extreme terror. This terror is not due altogether to the sinister manner of his recent disappearance, but was engendered by the whole nature of his life work, and first gained its acute form more than 17 years ago, when we were in the third year of our course at the Miskatonic University Medical School in Arkham. While he was with me, the wonder and diabolism of his experiments fascinated me utterly, and I was his closest companion. The first horrible incident of our acquaintance was the greatest shock I had ever experienced, and it is only with reluctance that I repeat it. West had already made himself notorious through his wild theories on the nature of death and the possibility of overcoming it artificially. He had killed and treated immense numbers of rabbits, guinea pigs, cats, dogs, and monkeys. Several times he had actually obtained signs of life, but he soon saw that the perfection of this process would involve a lifetime of research. It likewise became clear that he would require human subjects for further and more specialized progress. It was here that he first came into conflict with the college authorities and was debarred from future experiments by no less a dignitary than the dean of the medical school himself, Dr. Allen Halsey. I had always been exceptionally tolerant of West's pursuits, and we frequently discussed his theories. My friend believed that unless the actual decomposition had set in, a corpse fully equipped with organs may, with suitable measures, be set going again in the peculiar fashion known as life. He sought extreme freshness in his specimens, injecting his cautions into the blood immediately after the extinction of life. It was not long after that West confided to me his resolution to get fresh human bodies in some manner. It was uncanny to hear him dwelling on the relative merits of Christ Church Cemetery and the Potter's Field. We finally decided on the Potter's Field, because practically everybody in Christ Church was embalmed. I was by this time his active and enthralled assistant, and helped him make all his decisions. It was I who thought of the deserted Chapman farmhouse beyond Meadow Hill, where we fitted up on the ground floor an operating room and laboratory. The place was far from any road, and in sight of no other house. Gradually we equipped our haunt of science with materials either purchased in Boston or quietly borrowed from the college. We followed the local death notices like ghouls, for our specimens demanded particular qualities. What we wanted were corpses interred soon after death and without artificial preservation, preferably free from malforming disease, and certainly with all organs present. Accident victims were our best hope. Not for many weeks did we hear of anything suitable. In the end, though, luck favored us, for one day we heard of an almost ideal case in the Potter's Field. A brawny young workman drowned only the morning before in Sumner's Pond, and buried at the town's expense without delay or embalming. It was a repulsive task that we undertook in the black small hours, even though we lacked at the time the special horror of graveyards which later experiences brought to us. The process of unearthing was slow and sordid. It might have been gruesomely poetical if we had been artists instead of scientists. I reached down and hauled the contents out of the grave, and then both toiled hard to restore the spot to its former appearance. When we had patted down the last shovelful of earth, we put the specimen in a canvas sack and set out for the old Chapman place beyond Meadow Hill. On an improvised dissecting table, the specimen was not very spectral looking. It had been a sturdy and apparently unimaginative youth of wholesome plebeian type, a sound animal without psychological subtleties, and probably having vital processes of the simplest and healthiest sort. I wondered what sights this placid youth might have seen in inaccessible spheres, and what he could relate if fully restored to life. The tension on our part became very great. We knew that there was scarcely a chance for anything like complete success, and could not avoid hideous fears at possible grotesque results of partial animation. West was calmer than I as he forced a large quantity of his liquid into a vein of the body's arm. The waiting was gruesome, but West never faltered. Every now and then he applied his stethoscope to the specimen and bore the negative results philosophically. After about 3/4 of an hour without the least sign of life, he disappointedly pronounced the solution inadequate, but he was determined to make the most of his opportunity and try one change in the formula before disposing of his ghastly prize. So taking the solitary lamp into the adjacent laboratory, we left our silent guest on the slab in the dark and bent every energy to the mixing of the new solution, supervised by West with an almost fanatical care. I was pouring something from one test tube to another, and West was busy over the alcohol blast lamp which had to answer for a Bunsen burner in the gasless edifice when... Without a thought of our late employment or its possible discovery, both West and I leapt to the nearest window like stricken animals, overturning tubes, lamps, and retorts, and vaulting madly into the starred abyss of the rural night. We did not separate, but managed to get to West's room, where we whispered with the gas up until dawn. By then we had calmed ourselves a little with rational theories and plans for investigation, so that we could sleep through the day. But that evening, 2 items in the paper, wholly unrelated, made it again impossible for us to sleep. The old deserted Chapman house had inexplicably burned to an amorphous heap of ashes. That we could understand because of the upset lamp. Also, an attempt had been made to disturb a new grave in the potter's field, as if by futile and spadeless clawing at the earth. And for 17 years after that, West would look frequently over his shoulder and complain of fancied footsteps behind him.
There you go.